Good morning, everyone. Good to see all of you in the room today. Our friends online also. Just want to welcome you to worship today. This is our alternative service here at Meeting House Church. My name is Christian Wynn. I'm the teaching minister here. Today we are going to be engaging the prophets. We've been going through a series on the prophets. As it turns out, Sarah will be speaking to us today about Malachi. And the topic is going to be on covenant faithfulness. And I'll let Sarah, and maybe I'll have a couple comments about that later on as we move into the service. But at the end of the day, what we're really talking about is what does it mean to be in relationship with one another? How do we navigate relationships? What relationships, what kinds of claims do they make upon our lives? So as you are getting ready over the next 10 minutes or so before we get everything kind of launched for our service, we have a couple of questions. Here we are. So who has been your longest friend, and what defines your relationship? And then what relationships are you committed to and why? So take a little bit of time if you are so inclined at your tables to chat about that, and we'll see you shortly. It's good to see you guys. Yeah. This morning, after I left, the house was still pretty quiet.
Hard to say.
But when I got to the church, I was like, oh, she's texting someone, so maybe she's not.
Context.
Right, that's right.
In your mind. It's backwards. The toggle is the backwards of what you weary traveler.
Well, again, hello and good morning. It's, did I hear what's up? That's awesome. Let's see, what's up? The sky? I don't know. Good morning. Great to be with you all this morning. I'm Sarah, one of the ministers here in our community. And whether you are with us in person, if you're with us online right now, or maybe it's later in the week, just so glad to be together. In this service and in this space, we try to foster space for you to really listen to your own inner voice and what God is bubbling up in you, how your own story and the things you care about connect with how you live your life. And so I just would invite you, as you're here this morning, to begin to listen in to yourself as we go through the service. We're talking today about a series that we're going through on the prophets. Now, if you're like, what's the prophets, or what are we doing with that? So the prophets are a part of the Bible. They're in the Hebrew Bible. That's also part of the Christian Bible. And they are the folks who call the people to remember how they're supposed to live. I don't know about you, but sometimes I lose track of my own center, my own values. I act in ways that are out of alignment. And it's through community, my therapist, my faith, different relationships that help me to reconnect, having time in nature. So I don't know what those things are for you, But part of the invitation comes from the prophets. And so today we're going to be taking on Malachi, which my joke earlier today that Alan Church appreciated was everyone's favorite book of the Bible. Why that's funny is because probably most people haven't read the book of Malachi. I'm not going to make you raise your hand or anything, but I'm guessing that not everyone is like super familiar with it. It's the last book in what's the Hebrew Bible, what we often call the Old Testament, before we move into Matthew, which is in the New Testament. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that, but under the auspices in the sense of what does it mean in the biblical imagination around covenant? What's relationship look like? And so we're going to be talking some about that and thinking about the relationships in our lives that help us to also live in alignment. So that all being said, Shelby is going to come up and read a little bit of Malachi for us.
Malachi, verses 4 through 9. Know this, that I issued this decree against you, so that my covenant with Levi will endure, says Yahweh. My covenant with Levi was one of life and peace, and I gave him the duty of reverence. Levi revered me and lived in awe of my name. Because Levi, a priest, gave true instruction, and no word of injustice fell from his lips, Levi walked in harmony and uprightness with me, and turned many people from evil doing. For the faithful hang on the words of the priests and seek knowledge and instructions from them, for they are called to be messengers of Yahweh. But you turned aside from the path. You caused many to stumble with your instructions. You have corrupted the covenant of Levi, says Yahweh. So I in turn made you contemptible and vile to the whole people, because you did not keep to my path, but showed partiality in the way you administered the law.
Thank you, Shelby. Well, if you're like, what was going on with that? We will talk more about it in a little bit. But as we get started and continue on this morning, the first song that we're going to sing together this morning is entitled Thank You. And if you have a worship guide, or there's the little black circle on your table that you can do the QR code to get the worship guide, or it's in the link on YouTube. You'll find that there are some questions and invitations with each part of the service. And from Andrew, with this song, he noted, being in covenant starts with knowing our foundation, knowing who we're connected to, and from there living out of our gratitude and desire to share the love and support with others. So he invited you to consider the question then, what does gratitude toward God look like? As we move into the song, let me just say a prayer and we'll go from there. God, for this morning, for the gift of love and relationships, for the ability to be reminded when we forget, to be a people who have not just second chances, but lots of chances, to keep becoming more human and more filled with love. For all these things we give thanks. This day might you meet us anew, that we could hear our own invitations to live out your love and your good news. It's in your name we gather. Amen.
Spend your youth, spend your time with all these tears, not all were mine. I just want to thank you, I just want to thank you, I just want to thank you, I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you, sweet baby, for getting me through. hide your fear. I can't hide mine. In spite of all this fear, I think we're fine. I just wanna thank you. 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 I just wanna thank you, sweet baby, for getting through. I was looking back there, oh, could have been no one else. I could have been so cold, laying here by myself. Ever since you found me, yeah, never been anybody else. Yeah, baby, I just wanna thank you. 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 I just wanna thank you, sweet baby, for getting through.
All right, well, good morning, church. This is the time of our day where we invite all of our friends back in the corner and those who are sitting with us today for God's Garden. And for those of you who don't know what God's Garden is our time. Yeah, feel free to come on up, kids, to sing our God's Garden song. Yeah. God's Garden is the time of the day where we get to break out and be together in community with all of our friends nursery through 5th grade, talking about what it means to be in community here at Meeting House Church, singing songs, making stuff, singing, dancing, hanging out, playing in the gym, and being together. It's a lot of fun. But how we get out of this room and into our classroom is by singing our God's Garden song. Right, Eliza? Right, exactly. We sing our God's Garden song. And if you don't know that song, that's okay, because we're going to sing it 2 times through, and the band is going to play it for us right now, band. Are you ready?
We're ready.
Kids, are you ready? Yeah, okay, that's good. Then let's sing it. One more time, a little louder. Yeah, give them a round of applause. That was awesome. Now, the last thing that we have to do before we head out of here is, my friends up here, we have to say, on the count of 3, as loud as we can, "Hi, church!" On the count of 3, okay? That was a good practice. Hi, church, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, that was really good. Now, church, on the count of 3, I need you to say with as much energy and love and passion as you can, "Have fun, kids," on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Have fun, kids. Oh, amazing. All of our pre-K friends will follow Miss Ainsley out that side door right there. And all of my K through 5 friends will come with me out our back door, and we'll go down our hallway to our K through 5 classroom, which is led by signs. Parents, if you want to pick up your kids afterwards, they will be in those rooms, which would be great. I think they'd love to see you.
Thanks so much, George. Thanks, kids. You guys have a great time. Good morning again. It's great to be able to be here with you today. As Sarah already said, we're starting a series, or I guess we're not starting a series. We're in the midst of a series on the minor prophets, and today we're talking about Malachi. And what we're talking about thematically is covenant faithfulness, which I know you're going to talk a little bit more about in a few minutes, Sarah. But a covenant is sort of the way that in the kind of scriptural world, the scriptural imagination, that a lot of the ancient, biblical authors talked about a regulated relationship. How do you have a relationship with someone else, and how is it structured? What does it look like? And covenants were a way of doing that, a way of regulating, a way of putting structure around relationships. They typically required promises. You made promises to someone else, and someone else made promises to you. And maybe there were curses. So if I didn't keep up my end of the bargain, or if this other person didn't keep up their end of the bargain, there were at least consequences. We might not like the language curse, but one way, though, that I like to think about what does it mean to be in covenant with someone else is what does it mean to be faithful, right? What does it mean to be faithful to a friend? What does it mean to be faithful to a partner? What does it mean to be faithful to a child or a parent? Or add in whatever relationship you can imagine there. And I was telling Sarah a little bit, I don't know if I want to share this because I'll cry, which is, everybody's laughing because it's like, well, that's what happens every Sunday anyway. But when my mom was dying, she died a pretty difficult death from cancer. And I remember one of the last things that we were talking about was being a father, being a mother and being a son. And I said to her, she was like, I don't think I was a very good mother to you. And I said, no, Mom, you kept faith with me. So when I think about what does it mean to be covenant faithfulness, that image comes to mind. So, through my tears and pleading to you, I want you to think about this question. I'm going to give you about 4 or 5 minutes. What does it mean for you to keep faith with someone else? Right. Hi, everybody. I want to give you about 30 seconds, and we'll be coming back together and singing together.
For a moment I could wait to see it fall apart. Every empty bed in every city I've been. I sit and contemplate all the moments you said. Time stands in duel, and I stand for you. Was that you used to say, find a love that you could wait for? Or do you feast upon the weak and weary of heart? I can take the pain, but I can't take all the hatred, laziness of mind and simply soft thoughts. Are you just too old or too young to carry? Time stands in the wall, and I stand for you. Now you're pouring out your hate at every difference you found. You won't even listen to reason at all. Now questioning your faith, far be it from me. Would you speak of love while tying one's hands? Are you just too old or too young to carry? Time stands in the wall, and I stand for you. Are you just too old or too young to carry? Time stands in the wall, and I stand for you. Now lean and use your weight. That's what your shoulders made for. Carry all the dead and children from here. Curses on the men and the greed that seems to plague them. I can't raise my hand, so I'm raising my voice. Are you just too old or too young to carry? Time stands in the wall, and I stand for you. Are you just too old or too young to carry? Time stands in the wall, and I stand for you. Time stands in the wall, and I stand for you.
probably about 2016 when a famed preacher from the Chicago area, Reverend Dr. Jeremiah Wright, preached a sermon that some of you may recall hearing about anyway. He preached a sermon in which he said that God should curse America if America didn't live up to its values of who it's called to be in the world. Now, at the time, if you'll recall this, if for those of you who remember it, and I'll give context for those of you who don't, at the time, there was a little bit of reaction about this sermon. That was understatement. There seemed to be a lot of reaction. Particularly for a lot of Christians, there seemed to be a lot of angst about this sermon from a lot of people. Now, I remember at the time thinking to myself, have these folks not read the prophets before? Okay. I'm going to say more about what I mean by that. The prophets are a significant part of the Hebrew Bible and therefore also the Christian imagination. They're the folks who remind people and remind the people when they've lost their way. They call them back to right relationship, and throughout the prophets, some of the themes we'll be looking at is the way that in order to be faithful, it's not about looking like the right kind of faithful person, giving the right sacrifices, going to temple or church in our case, but it's really about how we live. And for the people of Israel, it was, are you being the people who are ensuring that the poor, the widow, the orphan, the foreigner, that they're cared for in your midst? And this is part of how you live out covenant faithfulness. And whenever that goes astray or it goes sideways, the prophets come in and are like, God's going to curse you. This isn't going well, people. Get your stuff together and come back. Okay. Again and again, they do this. This is why probably for me as a person and human and Christian and American, I value the role of critique. In our current political environment, often we frame things up, right, as if this one group thinks all this and this other group thinks all that. And you can't possibly say something like, hey, I have some concerns or questions, where it often folks will say then, okay, you can leave or you're clearly against it. For me, for instance, as a person who is an American, is from the United States, I love my country. And part of my loving my country is continuing to be a person who says, okay, so how can I help myself to live out more of our values? How can I be honest in view of the history of my country where we've failed at that? And how can I be part of a collective of us living more towards what we say we aspire to? That's on the political communal level, but I try to do that as a human too, right? Where I have things that I say that I value. I have ways that I want to show up in the world, and I don't always, fully embody them. Okay. So I see that as an invitation to how can I keep getting in alignment? How can I have people who help me lovingly get back? And in so many ways, that's the call of the prophets. They're the people who, as messengers of God, come to the people and say, hey, you missed some stuff. Come back, come back. Okay. Now, Malachi, again, everyone's favorite book of the Bible, ends what in the Christian canon is the Old Testament. It's right before the book of Matthew and the story of Jesus in the Gospels. Interestingly, and some of you will know this and some of you won't, in the Hebrew Bible and in their canon, it appears in a different place. So what happens in the Hebrew Bible and for Jewish people is you have the Torah, which is the first 5 books of the Christian Bible as well, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Some of you know that. And then in the text, it goes on and continues forward from the Torah, and you have the prophets, who are a significant part of the Hebrew Bible and the Jewish imagination. Within that context, we actually go to some books that in the Christian scriptures we consider more history, but they consider them prophets. And in that space also, Malachi ends the section of the prophets before it goes into the Psalms. This is sort of random factoids, but I'm going to tell you why I think it also matters, okay? A few different things. One of them is something that blew my mind like 2 days ago. So for those of you who've already thought of this, you beat me to thinking about it. Interestingly, the minor prophets, as we call them in the Christian tradition, are called the 12 in the Hebrew Bible and the Jewish scriptures. It never occurred to me until a couple days ago, because it was always the minor prophets, that there are 12. Okay, this is a big deal that there are 12 minor prophets, because there are 12 tribes in the Jewish, right, in the Jewish story and history. So you have 12 prophets who are calling the 12 tribes to remember how they're supposed to live their lives. Okay, so not everyone thought that was as cool as I did, but I really thought it was really cool the other day. I was like, my mind is blown. Okay, but what I love about it, though, is it's rhetorically, and as they structured the text, a lot of commentators actually think that the book of Malachi was originally a part of the book that precedes it, but they separated it out so that there would be 12. You know, you're like, oh, we only have 11 pieces of candy bar, but we're just going to cut this one, and now we got 12. We're good, you know? So that's the call throughout the prophets, is it's a call to the 12 tribes to remember who they're supposed to be, and that is important. A few things about this text and part of what Shelby read for us. So what's happening, and Christian referred to this, covenant is an idea that's really important, particularly in the Hebrew Bible and for the Jewish people. At the time when the majority of the Torah and in the imagination for Israel, in the ancient Near East, covenant was something that you would see. There would be covenant between the kings and the people, between the gods and the people. And so for the Israelites, the fact that their relationship with God is rooted in covenant is a way of saying, where do they ground themselves? Who's their king, right? For Israel, there's not supposed to be any other king but Yahweh. Likewise, for Christians, we're not supposed to have any ruler or anyone who's like they're everything. It's always supposed to be, how are we in alignment with God? And how, living from that place of alignment, do we then live out the things of God in relationship to one another? So Malachi takes on an interesting form. A couple of factoids for y'all as we connect this. One is that in the Hebrew Bible, names matter a lot. Okay, this book is Malachi is a name we don't really see other places. So some folks have questions of if this is more of is this an actual person, Malachi, or is it kind of a symbolism of a story of the messenger? Because that's what Malachi means, is my messenger. And the book starts off with the messenger bringing an oracle. An oracle is the sense of it's this heavy burden, this thing that I got to bring to you that's not always easy. I don't know if you've ever had a conversation with a friend or a family member when they're making some choices that aren't the best for themselves. And you're like, I don't really want to have this conversation because if I do, it might not go well. I think of that in a way with what's going on here, is knowing like what I have to bring isn't like, oh, you're wonderful, keep up the good work, right? This is an oracle, it's heavy, and the messenger is bringing, though, the word of Yahweh to the people. How this book, it's only 4 chapters, so you can read it. It's not going to harm you if you do. 4 chapters, and it's set up very much like a Greek disputation. If you go through and read, it's really interesting. There's a ton of questions. There's questions from the people. There's questions from Yahweh. There's questions from the messenger that go back and forth throughout this text. The people are very much in a place where they're like, you maybe have never done this, where you're like, oh, but like, what do you mean? I totally showed up for your thing. And you're like, yeah, but you were there and you looked at me like you wanted me to die. You know, like it's the thing where you say I'm following the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law, I'm really not following. So here's some of the questions that the people ask. So Yahweh says to them, I've loved you. And they're like, but how have you loved us? How have we despised your name? How have we polluted the table? Okay, they're like, you ask why? How have we wearied you, Yahweh? Where is the God of justice? How can we return? How have we defrauded you? How have we spoken against you? So they're like, prove it. And okay, Yahweh, like we did the thing. We're fine. Just leave us alone. And then Yahweh asked questions of the people, asking them, like, why have you not shown up? Why have you not shown me the love or the reverence that is due to me? And then also the messenger asked them some questions. This is in chapter 2. I love this. The messenger asked the people, are we all not children of God? Did not one God create us? Why then do we break faith with one another and defile the covenant of our ancestors? So it's just this challenge to the people who are like, hey, we're totally good. And then Yahweh's like, no, you're not good. Like, case in point, you're bringing stuff that's just garbage for your offering. You're harming other people. You're acting like you're fine, and you're not fine. And so the messenger comes in this place and is calling to the people to remember who they're called to be, and to choose then to walk in the way of covenant faithfulness connected with God. So that's like the framing of what's going on. The part that Shelby read for us is the part where it's talking about Levi is the lineage of the priests, and the Levites were supposed to live in covenant faithfulness and represent that to the people. And we see that in the story that's, again, not what's going on. Shelby read in verse 3, my covenant was one of life and peace, being shalom, well-being. But basically, the priests themselves aren't interested in participating in that in the way that they're supposed to. And so essentially, this entire book then goes through, and it's that call to the people, you've forgotten, remember what you're supposed to be and who you're supposed to be. Quit with all of your like, oh, but I'm good. And then the book ends bringing us to a remembrance that they're actually in the midst of a lot of the folks being like, hey, I'm not interested in covenant faithfulness. There actually is a group. There's always a group that is part of this remembrance. It says, but those who revered Yahweh talked together, and Yahweh listened and took note. And so the book ends with that there is a promise of a future. And this is why in the Christian Bible, this book is put before Matthew, because it says, I will send a messenger. And so in the Christian tradition, then, we put that book there as a way of saying this is both John the Baptist, who will then tell us, like, Jesus is coming. And Jesus will be the fulfillment of the covenant. Jesus perfectly walks in right relationship with Yahweh and embodies what God's about in God's kingdom. And so that's why in the Christian Bible, it's placed where it is. So that's essentially like what's going on in the book of Malachi. If you would like to read it on your own and email me with any thoughts that you have, or do coffee to talk about the book of Malachi, I'd be happy to do that. But just a couple connections that I want to make then with our own lives. The one of them is connected to where I started. And it's just the question about, like, where in your own life, where in our lives, if we're called to be a people who keep faith with God and with one another, both where are some places where maybe you need some messenger in your own life, where maybe you've forgotten or we forget some of the threads or the ways that we're called to live? Who are the people or the places, the ways that you get back into alignment when you find yourself, whether it's in your friendships, partnerships, just your life in general, when we've lost or you've lost your way? And what does it mean that central in our faith is the prophet? That our faith absolutely invites and calls us home. But it's not just in a way that is like, oh, hey, beat up your siblings. That's totally cool. It's something that calls to us to live out our better selves, to be changed and transformed, to take accountability when we lose our way and we harm each other. How does the prophet then trouble, shape, inspire your and our lives and our faith to be a people who believe that critique and challenge is part of the way of becoming and being faithful? When I was 24 years old, I was involved in a relationship that really was not good for me. And one of the greatest gifts of my life was that my friends said something to me. One of my best friends, Lindsay, said, "Sarah, I love you." We had been dating technically for 2 weeks, and we're talking about getting married. And she said, "I love you. What are you doing?" I remember my brother came over, and my brother's always been a truth person. And I just remember him like looking like this, like, what is going on with this, right? And then another one of my dear friends pulled me aside, right? And their willingness to show up and do that in my life opened me up in a way that I needed. And so I think in this spirit of keeping faith, how do we, with love, with seeing being for each other and for who God has called us to be, continue to be a people who invite each other to keep faith and to change. So with that, I'll invite Christian to come up and bring us into a little bit of how this keeping faith connects not just to our individual lives and our relationships, but to how we live in the world. So Christian.
So when I got up earlier, I obviously shared a pretty intimate story. It might have been more intimate than some Minnesotans would have preferred. And typically, when you do look at Scripture, I think covenant becomes a way of regulating intimate relationships. But there's also a deeper resonance in the Christian Bible, certainly also in the Jewish, of course, Bible, which is a part of our holy text. And that is that covenants are not, it's not just a way of thinking about how do I relate to another individual or even to a select group, but it might be a way of thinking about how I relate as a whole. And here what I want to do really, in a sense, is to get you to think about when God created the earth, however we think about what that means, scientifically, whatever, there's a certain sense in which God made promises to us. And asks us, I guess, to enter into those promises of life, sharing, love, justice, etc. So we're not alone, and we're already, in a sense, in covenant. And so the two questions that I have for you to think about in this regard, in some ways I would suggest, I guess, is how wide is your aperture? How wide is your vision of what it would mean to be a faithful person? The two questions that are in your outline, I think they're going to be up here on the screen, right, are what does it look like to you to keep faith with the larger human community? And what does it look like to you to keep faith with the earth? So think about those. Take 5-7 minutes or whatever, share, process that at your table, and then I'll invite the band up, and they'll be playing a little bit in the background, and then we'll enter into our final song together. one more minute, we'll be coming back together.
This is the first day of my life. It's where I was born, right in the doorway. I went out in the rain, suddenly everything changed. They're spreading blankets on the beach. Yours is the first face that I saw. Think I was blind before I met you. Now I don't care, I could go anywhere with you, and I'd probably be happy. And so I thought I'd let you know that these things take forever. I especially am slow, but I realized that I need you. And I wondered if I could come home. Remember the time you drove all night just to meet me in the morning? And I thought it was strange, you said everything changed. You felt as if you just woke up. And you said, this is the first day of my life. I'm glad I didn't die before I met you. But now I don't care, I could go anywhere with you, and I'd probably be happy. And so if you wanna there's no telling, we just have to wait and see. I'd rather be working for a paycheck than waiting to win the lottery. Besides, maybe this time it is different. I mean, I really think you like me.
Thanks, y'all. We have Brennan on guitar and vocals with Kelsey, Al Church on the electric, and Cisse back here on the drums. Thanks, y'all. was like a good fitting end to the book of Malachi. So just a couple things before we go today. The one is that we're in the midst of a stewardship campaign in which we're intentionally asking you to just consider what's your financial investment and contribution to the community. And so with that, knowing that it takes all of us, we just have a couple-minute video here for you to see.
Financial stewardship means to me that there are multiple pathways that my family can access our faith. We can, on a given Sunday, find 4 different ways to celebrate God, to connect with community, and to be with each other in God's presence.
Financial stewardship impacts all of us in many ways here inside these walls and far beyond. I've learned on the missions team that our donations go a long, long way across the globe.
We believe deeply in the good news, and we want to share it near and far. And we see the church as the center out of which we can bless others with the good news. And what we found is that over the years, as we've committed to sharing our blessings, we have been blessed indeed by the Lord.
We love going to the gym, eating dinner, and drinking hot chocolate.
Hi, I'm Jillian. I'm Jane. And the money you give to the church helps us bring our friends that don't go to this church here.
And it also helps us hang out with our friends and do fun activities.
Thank you so much for giving, because we're able to do so many fun things like
going to camp,
eating snacks, helping others, and having great friends. Thank you!
Stewardship impacts all of us by having this amazing music ministry.
So 2 things. One is that Paul Radoy, next video we make, I'm talking to you, we're going to have the chorale sing. That's per Al Church. We're going to get them to sing in the next video. And the second thing is as part harmony, lots of parts of harmony, yes. The second thing is in your worship guide today, you received, or there's the link there, a card for the pledges. And we're just asking through the end of this month that you consider it. And then next week is when we'll actually ask folks to say, okay, what do I think? So with that, Christian, tell us our last few announcements, that what's going on in the life of the church, and then we'll be on our way.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have many things. Always seems like we're constantly doing interesting things or having opportunities here at Meeting House. Well, number one, currently over in traditional service, we have a guest speaker today, Steph Spencer, who many of you may know or be familiar with. She is the founder and leader of 40 Orchards. And 40 Orchards is, they provide a range of different opportunities. They study scripture in a very particular way. We're going to have what's called a scripture circle. That'll be meeting tomorrow night from 6:30 to 8:30. If you're interested in engaging scripture in a new way, I really strongly encourage you to check out. She uses a midrashic method, which is a Jewish method of engagement, in which you come in and kind of bring your own questions, and that becomes the sort of the main ingredient to the discussion, actually, is what's driving you, what's in your own heart, in your own mind. So I strongly encourage that. It'll be 6:30 to 8:30 in the Hearth Room. Next Sunday, we have the quarterly town hall meeting. So that will be after the service around 11 o'clock. Please stick around. I think our last quarterly town hall meeting was actually quite productive. We talked a lot about finances there. I think we'll be talking about vision and other kinds of questions and issues there. So put that down on your calendar and please stick around. And then today, you could also stick around because I'm teaching a Sunday school class afterwards. On the Reformations, we're going to be talking or completing our discussion of the Radical Reformation, which are the groups that were sort of the most radical in terms of egalitarianism and pacifism and all those kinds of interesting things. So hope you'll stick around for that. As always, if you value this community and the ministry here, please consider offering. You can offer online, you can offer by text, or there's also a giving box out at the front. And with that, May you receive God's blessing today as you go forth. May you know what it means that not only for you to be faithful, but the fact that God is actually faithful to you. Go in peace, brothers and sisters. Amen.